And welcome back into the Tiger Kickoff Show presented by the Columbia Missourian. I'm your host, Harrison Vapnek, with KOMU Sports, joining alongside the beat writers of the Mizzou football team, Wendell Shepherd, Ryerson, Brandon Haynes. Gentlemen, happy Monday. Victory Monday for the fourth straight week. Tigers 4-0, back in the top 25. How are we feeling?
Starting to get used to this.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
It's like coming back here on a Monday, like expecting the Tigers to win, like haven't felt that in years, but the Mizzou fan base hasn't.
Feeling like 2013.
Feels like 13. I said that to someone, and they were like, "Oh, but the 7 starters on the defense were NFL players," and it's like, feels like 13.
Yeah. Like that it could happen with this defense in the future. But yeah, ranked for the first time since 2019 feels like a little different energy with this year.
The 2 a.m. car ride back from St. Louis really wasn't that bad because we had a lot to talk about, and I really don't want to have to do one of those car ride backs, like a 7-hour one.
Yeah, we got a 6-hour Vandy coming up on Saturday. We'll talk about the Vandy game coming up later this week, but today we're talking about the St. Louis game, 34-27 win for the Missouri Tigers over the Memphis Tigers. It was a stellar day for the offense, over 500 total yards. They're 4-0, we talked about. They get through the non-con slate with perfect through that run. This team just feels like it has like some kind of different energy to it, a different feel to it. Wendell, I'll start with you. It's the same question I asked Coach Drinkwitz after the game Saturday. What's different about this team?
I think the main thing is just, the defense was great last year. They're good again this year. I think the main difference is just like having an explosive offense. First drive of the game, you have a 76-yard touchdown to Marquis Johnson who completely blows the top off the defense. That's something you haven't seen with the Mizzou offense since 2020 against LSU, and that was probably the only time that
only game they've ever looked at.
The only game they looked like that, and that's what we've seen the last 2 games, and consistently throughout both of them. So I think that's the main difference. It's fun to watch.
Adam, what are you seeing from either the offense or the defense that's really making the difference with this team so far?
I got to agree with Wendell. It's the offense, and Kirby Moore just seems like he's kind of saved the offense of this program. Because, I started becoming, following Mizzou sports when I got here as a freshman, and from Chicago the first 3 years, I was like, it's like I'm watching the Bears in college football, and it seemed like nothing could go right. But this year, the offense is actually doing well, and they're playing to the strengths of Brady Cook. They're playing the strengths of Luther Burden. And even the running game, they're playing to the strengths of these players, and that's just something that's kind of refreshing that I feel like Mizzou fans haven't seen in a very long time.
Sticking with the offense, Brandon, and especially Kirby Moore, we had some skepticism after the Middle Tennessee State game. We talked on this show. This offense looks about the same, just with a different coordinator. Everything's the same. Kansas State, Memphis, 2 completely different games, over 30 points in each, over 400 total yards in each, and Brady Cook with his first 2 career 300-yard games. What changed after Middle Tennessee State and then into the last 2 games?
I think it's just that Kirby Moore and the offense started to trust themselves a little bit more, and just the ability to extend the field. We knew they were probably withholding plays. They obviously were, in some extent. But I think the confidence is there. This is a confident Missouri offense, and we haven't seen a confident Missouri offense in a long time. And I think that starts with Brady Cook. His confidence is accelerating right now behind what happened against Kansas State and now back at home in St. Louis. I think just the potential for this offense kind of just grows with that confidence and that ability for Kirby Moore and Brady Cook to kind of continue to ride that success.
It was 341 passing yards from Cook. He had, 357 against Kansas State. Luther Burden, back at his hometown, a career high, 177 receiving yards on 10 catches. He's basically become unguardable at this point, and now we'll see how he can match up against SEC play. But specifically against Memphis, how were the Tigers able to exploit what was a pretty good Memphis defense through their first 3 games that the Tigers full control offensively? I don't even think they punted more than twice.
3 times.
3 times the whole game, and not much in the second half. What was the key to their specific success against the Tigers of Memphis?
I think what the sign of a good offense is when you make your job easy for your quarterback and for your playmakers, and you can get those guys open. Because there wasn't any catch Luther made where he wasn't wasn't in a bit of space. He wasn't Brady Cook wasn't having to fit the ball in tight windows or scheming him with the other routes that receivers are running to open up space for Luther. And just having him in the slot is just so much of a difference because compared to last year, he just can get the ball quicker, and he's amazing after the catch. I think he had 129 yards after the catch.
127, I think it was.
127, that's just unbelievable. And that's just what's working.
And Adam, something we talked about earlier in the year was they need to get other receivers involved. That was specifically something we talked about after the Middle Tennessee State game. it feels like Kirby Moore and company have really figured that out. We've seen Wease get involved with a couple touchdowns so far. Mookie Cooper was involved. Marquis Johnson, 2 big plays each of the last 2 games. We also didn't even see the tight end Brett Norfleet out with a rib injury on Saturday. How have they been able to get other guys involved? So it's not all, even though Luther is still putting up insane numbers, it's not all on his shoulders because they can give the ball to other guys. How have they been able to figure that part out of the offense?
I think it's 2 things. The first thing is that, like I said earlier, it goes back to playing to these players' strengths. Marquis Johnson, like Wendell said, he has, I think you tweeted on the late night drive home, the late night thoughts, 59 yards per catch. He has 2 catches, 1 for a touchdown, 1 for a huge gain against K-State. And then they're just doing that for each receiver. You see them using Theo Wease in the 3rd and shorts, the goal line situations. They're using his bigger frame to their advantage. And Mookie Cooper has done a great job playing second fiddle to Luther Burden. They're able to stretch the field with those 4 pretty much different receivers. And you can even bring in players like Dennis Jackson, who have had some big catches, and Brett Norfleet as well. Didn't even get to see him, but Jordan Harris came in and is credited for making 2 big blocks on 2 different touchdown plays. So that, I think, is the biggest reason that they're able to stretch the field. And the other thing is the play action game. I said earlier on the show, I wish I knew how many percentage of the passing plays are play action, but Memphis was biting on everything.
It's got to be like in the 70s, that percentage, because every time it's that shotgun, the play fake to Schrader or Pete, and they got guys crossing down the field, that's become a huge part. That's what Kirby Moore did a lot of when he was over at Fresno State with Jake Haener as his quarterback. A lot of that pistol play action, getting guys involved. It's almost an advanced look of what Missouri was doing last year, but with more motion and some more twist to it.
Yeah, it also, one thing that it does do for a quarterback is it helps you get into your read earlier, because when you're doing that play action game, you can, usually if it's a run play, you're looking at the right DN, but you're able to look at the linebacker on the backside, so you're able to go straight into your passing reads, whether it's the linebacker, the safety, front side linebacker, safety, cornerbacks, whatever it is. While you're doing that, you kind of just can process only one thing and then get into your drop, and then you'll pretty much know where the ball is going to go by the time you throw it.
So let me ask you this, Adam. We've seen this against the 4 non-cons. Can this work against SEC defenses? Because they're playing LSU in a couple weeks. They obviously have the defending national champions, Georgia down the road. They have Florida. They have Arkansas. These are all SEC power guys. Can this same offensive scheme work against that competition?
I think yes. You see it in the NFL. You see it all across college football. Play action passes are becoming more and more consistent. And there's even people that say you should run play action on every single pass play no matter what, just because of how effective it is. If you're going to run the ball like Mizzou did, where they didn't have too much success until the 4th quarter, but they still got respect from their earlier performances, why not run play action every single time you pass the ball?
Yeah, Brandon, I'll come to you. We mentioned the running game. Cody Schrader is the single leading rusher in the SEC right now, which is crazy. He has 403 total yards, just 2 touchdowns, went for over 100 against Memphis. He has become almost a difference maker in this backfield, because we talked about before the year, it was probably one of the worst running back rooms in the SEC we projected. It's been successful as of now. What has Cody been able to do to really generate some electric plays for this offense?
I think one thing that Cody's really done well is late in the games, just being able to break through for those runs. I think we saw it multiple times throughout the 4th quarter, his ability to kind of keep pounding. And while it may not work there in the 1st quarter, he's able to kind of break away at some point and kind of make a difference. And just that confidence to continue to go to him from Drinkwitz. Obviously, there have been some people calling, why don't we use Nate Pete more? And Drinks even mentioned it a couple times. But Cody Schrader's that back that will go out there, put everything on the next play, and just continue to run through it. So I think that's good. I think that's a big part of what is making the play action so successful, is when you have a rusher who is now leading the SEC in rushing yards, you have to respect that as a defense. Yeah. And regardless of whether or not they believe Cody Schrader is the top rusher in the SEC or not, you have to respect it for the performance he's doing. And once that gains respect, obviously you have Brady Cook's ability to kind of use that to his advantage, and we're kind of seeing it with the speed that's kind of throughout Missouri's offense.
Because that still comes up on the scouting report if you're Vanderbilt and Coach Clarke leasing that, hey, they have the leading rusher in the SEC. We need to make sure we're stopping him. Cody Schrader might not be the most talented rusher, but he's very effective, and it's something that defenses have to respect. We talk about non-conference plays over. Now we're heading into the big SEC play. 8 straight games against SEC competition. What is the number one thing you think the Tigers need to improve, Wendell, upon going into this big stretch?
I think on both sides of the ball, and we talked about it before, they got to improve on money downs. They had over 500 yards, 34 points, and didn't didn't convert a single third down, which is, I don't know if that's impressive or if that's embarrassing that you still put out that performance and don't convert a third down. But as good as his offense is, at some point you're going to have to, do something on those plays. You're going to, it'll be crunch time and you got to pick up a third down late in the game. So I think that, and against Memphis on the defensive side of the ball, they allowed 3 or 4 fourth down conversions. So that's something that you can't have.
Coach Strings talked about a little after the game is we can't guard in man coverage. I don't know if that's him just being frustrated with the way it was going because Memphis was able to get a lot of solo stuff, especially on the sideline and completions. Do you think he was over-exaggerating, or is that an actual cause of concern for this defense is playing man? They were also without Ennis Rakestraw, we should mention.
Yeah, I don't think it's an exaggeration at all. Okay. Their man defense so far this year has been pretty abysmal. Even against South Dakota, in those third downs, fourth downs, they weren't able to lock anybody up in man defense. The only player on the defense so far, and Rakestraw has done a good job of it, but like you mentioned, he was out this last game. The only person who could consistently cover in man defense on Saturday was Chris Abrams-Drain. He got the interception. He consistently was breaking up passes, which he did against K-State as well, had a couple of pass breakups and an interception in that game. But he is the only one on this defense that has been able to completely lock up somebody in man defense. Even like tight ends are getting open consistently for every team that Mizzou has been playing. I think a little bit will be nice to see when Chad Bailey really gets back into playing 100% of snaps to see how he does in pass coverage. But I think Dalen Carnell has to be better. I think J.C. Carlisle has to be better. And I think that most of the defense needs to be better, especially in man-to-man defense.
And if you look a couple weeks down the road, when they play LSU comes to town in less than 2 weeks, you got Brian Thomas Jr. and you got Malik Neighbors, who I think might be the best receiver in all of college football. You can't line up in zone against those guys. No. You got to have to man up, and you got Rakestraw and Chris Abrams-Drain, and they're going to have to, hopefully improve that one-on-one game. Brandon, I'll finish with you. You look a little bit into the Vanderbilt matchup for next week. We're going to go deep into it in our show later this week. But what are some early scouting report things that the Tigers can look out for that they can take advantage against the Commodores?
Yeah, so Vanderbilt's got 3 main receivers that they use. I don't have the exact names off the top of my head, but they got 3 receivers that they primarily rely upon. And that's going to be big with Mizzou's secondary, especially with the injury to Rakestraw and now Dre Norwood. That just matching up is going to be something that you got to pay attention to. And while it's Vanderbilt receivers, whatever, they still put up points this season, and they've done it consistently. The good thing for Mizzou that I think could help the defense is A.J. Swan, the Vanderbilt quarterback, struggles with completion percentage, which obviously isn't a stat to tell who he is exactly, but he's got the SEC's lowest completion percentage. Vanderbilt struggled to complete passes as a team. He's got 7 interceptions this season, and also Vanderbilt turns the ball over on fumbles a few times. So this could be a big game for Mizzou in takeaways, and we've seen them the past 2 games kind of turn it around, and so I think that's something that could really be a game changer this weekend.
We are now moving over to our moments of the game, our video brought to you by KOMU Sports, breaking down our 3 biggest moments of the game, and starting off with one of the first moments of the game, Adam Ryerson. Marquis Johnson, we talked about earlier, he has 2 big plays this season, both extremely big catches.
Yeah, this one, they set it up, 3rd play of the game, set it up with a Cody Schrader run, and then, like we said in the preview show, got to take the top off the defense. Little play-action game. By the time that they realized it was a pass, he was already 40 yards downfield. Brady Cook throws the best ball of the season. And quick score, quick 1-score lead for the Tigers. And, he hits a little nice little celebration there.
Yeah, big. His first career touchdown, if I'm not mistaken, from Marquis. Let's move over to our second one. Theo Wease Jr. has been a big red zone threat lately for the Tigers, and he had a big touchdown in the second half, Brandon.
Yeah, Theo scored his 2nd touchdown of the season, kind of just gets up there. I mean, if you're Brady Cook, just find the big target in the end zone, right? So he finds Theo. Obviously, last year, Theo was at Oklahoma kind of with Marvin Mims, who's kind of stood out with the Denver Broncos, and so now he has a chance to kind of come to Mizzou and kind of show what he learned alongside Mims and kind of show off there.
And Wendell, we talked the defense didn't have its great game on 3rd and 4th downs. They had 1 4th down stop the whole game, and it was this one, and it was a very important one.
Yeah, crucial play here. Pressure from pretty much the entire Mizzou D-line. Gaddy, Tyron Hopper there, forcing Hennigan to his left, makes a bad throw off balance, finds the hands of Marcus Clarke. His first Mizzou interception, 2nd of the game. This was big. Memphis was driving down the field. This was kind of sealed the game away. Mizzou got the ball back. and was able to, I believe, get a field goal after that.
Yep, led by 2 possessions the rest of the
Yeah.
way until eventually they were taking knees at the end of the game after the Memphis touchdown. Those are our moments of the game. Thank you, KOMU Sports, for all the great video. That is our show for today. We'll be back later this week to preview the Tigers, now ranked in the top 25, taking on Vanderbilt down in Nashville. We'll be reviewing everything from that game and also talking about what our writers will be writing about for their feature stories. We'll see you later this week on the Tiger Kickoff Show.